Greetings, this is Star Illumination. It is Tuesday, 16th of May, 2023 over here. I felt sort of compelled to do this little video. There's an awful lot that needs to be presented, but I don't think I can do it all. I'm just going to try and cram something as much as I can in a short a space as possible. It might sound rambling or confusing, but we'll see. I want to start with an astrodoodle first of all. I made one in advance to save you time, okay? Okay, here we are. Now this is for today, right now. You might recognize certain similarities with this, and this has been going on for quite some time as well. Mostly the thing that I'm concerned about here, of course, is this big fat T-square, the cusp energies, Pluto in Capricorn, cusp of Pluto in Aquarius, Mars in Cancer, cusp of Mars in Leo. That's a massive opposition. It's extremely volatile. I see it as a lot of pent-up violence and anger and rage and frustrating energy, looking for a way to express itself, all as a result of being suppressed or repressed by external influences. These are cusp energies here, 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 and here. And there's another one coming up, Jupiter. I'll show you in a minute. So we've got this big fat T-square looming, and it's going to tighten up even harder over the next, week or two. And this is a cusp. This is a cusp, and if you can see it right here, this is a cusp. Jupiter on the cusp into Taurus, okay? And the North Node in Taurus is cusping towards Aries. I see this as a massive pressure cooker building up, and with the recent events here, combine it all, it's basically what I've been saying for months. Human people are undergoing extreme pressure, and what the masses, I believe, are witnessing is a deluge of sewage that's built up for about 250 years that is now being released, but it's also just natural overflow of sewage when you pump so much squalor and filth and evil as your business model over so many years. It just pollutes and pollutes and pollutes. So I've been talking about that in previous videos. I'm going to move on from that in a minute. We talked about the eclipse a couple weeks ago over here, with this angle being, let's say, stressed, and I mentioned about the global financial crisis, which is now unavoidable. You can't not see it unless you're living under a rock, as they say. So we've got fixed energies here. If you look at it from the position of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio, rigid fixed energies that don't like to change or move. They would rather stay how they are, the way they are, and everything else move and adapt around them. But in the grander scheme of things, change and evolution is inevitable. At the same time, we also have the opposition here, Capricorn, Cancer, and with cardinal signs, very different vibe. That's all about energy and action and doing, and that includes the impending Jupiter thing here in Aries, the end. So it's this with the cusp over here, here, and here. What I feel is that we're seeing what amounts to tectonic shifts in the human being, the experience of human people on Earth, as one form of civilization dissolves and a new form of civilization evolves, and it's happening simultaneously. It's not like this comes along and then it stops and then this starts and goes along. It's happening simultaneously. The devolution, the implosion of the status quo, especially as embodied by the American empire of the last 250 years, which reached its pinnacle, and then it descended into this decadence and decay, which is where we are right now at the 29th degree over here. When it got to that point, decay and death is inevitable. So that's exactly what we are seeing in the history of the United States of America. There is a World War III going on. I see this as highly combustible here. It's been building up, but now it's a subject that you cannot avoid. It's out there, it's very real, it's happening. Huge amounts of loss of life, violence, blood, just recycling of warlike energies. It's going to accelerate, by the way, especially when Uranus gets into Gemini over here and you go back to the 84-year cycle, which takes you right back to World War II. Anyway, let me point out something with this big fat T-square here. There's no planets over here right now in the empty leg. If you think of this as a table, looking at the table from the top, it's a four-legged table, but one leg is missing, okay? Leg, 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 empty leg. Where is the solution to all this pain and suffering and chaos and violence, especially the way it's manifesting from the microscopic number of elites at the top of the world, governance, ownership, relative to we the people, the masses, 8 billion other people. Most of human interaction and behavior is conducted through exchange of energy. And one of the most obvious forms of that exchange of energy is currency, or what some people call money. Like, I'll do this, you give me that. Oh, I'll do this, you give me that. Exchange. And it goes on all over the world with currencies. And the United States dollar, the euro, the pound, the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan. And in the United States, we've managed to perpetuate this incredible fraud for about 120 years. And it's worked very, very well, but the fraud is imploding, it's collapsing, and we will see it as the implosion of the American economy and the American dollar in order as a new, let's say, global way of being emerges. So when you look at a big fat T-square like this in astrology, where's the solution? The solution is over here in the 8th house Scorpio energy of other people's money. And the solution, since this is not happening voluntarily, it would be the, let's see, external evolutionary pressures of nature for the world of other people's money to implode and collapse so that a more genuine, authentic world of other people's money can evolve. And that's what's happening right now. It's two parallel worlds. The world of tyrannical fake money versus an emerging world of sovereign wealth. Okay, sovereign wealth and your sovereign wealth vested into the world of other people's money, which has been completely perverted and undermined across the world. And everybody had to participate in the fraud or you die. And it's coming unraveled. It's just like what happens in pyramid schemes and Ponzi schemes across the world all day, every day. Fraud, fraud, fraud. Eventually it kind of collapses. So that's kind of what's happening right now on that scale. It's inevitable. So what we see here, I've talked about this many times, we have the world's elites over here represented by Pluto and Capricorn, 29.5 degrees, going absolutely desperate at the anaretic degree in astrology, indicating that the Capricorn, the unhealthy version of Capricorn energy, which is like obsessive need for more power, money, and control is reaching its zenith right now as global elites try and press harder and harder for their own version of more power, more control, and more money, which usually means destroying someone else so that you can get their stuff. So it ends up as war. And it's not only a currency war, it's an actual physical hot war now. When any country defies America and the United States dollar, there's always war in that country. Witness the destructions over in the Middle East and parts of Central America and Southeast Asia and so on. It's nothing to do with like morality and trying to save, people from communism. It's all about protecting the United States dollar. Anyway, it's all coming unraveled. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I just wanted to get that background thing out of the way. Excuse me. There's so much stuff I'm trying to absorb and process. Let me run through a few things first. These are my notes from McDonald's very early this morning. It's already early afternoon. I still haven't had a chance to catch up and do all this stuff. I've been overwhelmed by trying to digest the amount of frightening news that I've been witnessing. And of course, Love Triber and Path Traveler have sent me some very disturbing materials as well on top of it all. Let me go over here a moment so I can connect with you again. They sent me something about deep inside the World Economic Forum and how Klaus was groomed to be who he is and how he is today as part of a massive, let's say, just scheme to turn the whole of human population into one complete totalitarian one world government from the very, very top, as organized and run by a very small handful of elites. For example, the Council on Foreign Relationships, the Club of Rome, all these sort of legendary mythological organizations of human people who live above and beyond the government, above the banks, above the rules of law, above the bulk and the mass of humanity. These are the people who essentially own and operate the world. And their world is very different from ours. They don't have to comply with the things and codes of behavior that the masses try and construct for themselves in order to have what would be considered a fair and balanced life. It's very different for the elites at the top. Their idea is to basically farm humanity. And there's way too many people over here, especially in this place here called America, which is very, very, very awkward for the global elites. Because 250 years ago, at the first round of the Pluto cycle, those folks over there said, enough is enough. We're not going to play that game anymore. We're not going to be subjects, slaves, serfs to a solitary global elite. King, what's his name over there in England. And they created a completely upside down version of society where it's all about we the people. And the people essentially are trusted to govern and take care of themselves using things like common sense and rules of law, rules of behavior, all in accordance with universal laws, universal truths, rather than man-made conditions that benefit a certain handful of people at the expense of all the other masses that are being farmed and controlled. So if you think of it like a farm, if you think of this as a massive farm, these elites are almost reaching their point of orgiastic delight, where it's like, oh my God, we're so close. We're so close. We can implement the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. We can implement social credit scores. We can implement FedNow. We can implement global instantaneous currency exchanges. And we have to lock in the existing system of fraud in a way that is permanent and forever, that from which no one can escape. And that's their agenda at this very moment in time. The reason they are pushing so hard to basically close up their agenda is the same thing as a farm. They're trying to put a big fence around the whole of the human population for the benefit of their farm. In the United States, a while back, everything was agrarian. It was all about the independent small farming family, when 85% of the population lived and worked on farms in small towns and communities, and they all operated very autonomously, very independently, and they only needed what they called a federal government to take care of the business of everything outside of the United States. And one of the core mandates of the federal government is to protect our borders. Okay? Of course, you all know that's falling apart right now. Good fences make good neighbors. You might have noticed that. So the global elites are doing what they can, using the current administration in America as a tool to destroy this border here, and this border here, and even the border over here, and here, and here. Effectively doing that, especially by opening up this border, because human people from all over the world are coming into the United States from here, over to here. And it's all planned. The whole idea is complete, utter demographic change, and an overwhelming pressure on the existing economy and the social structure that creates an implosion. In other words, the implosion of the American empire, the dissolution of the United States in our beautiful Constitution and our beautiful Bill of Rights, and instead dissolving this into a chaotic, uncoordinated tragedy. Very, very similar to what's happening over here in Venezuela and over here in Zimbabwe and a few other places where the implosion is already in effect. It's very sad because Australia is in very deep trouble with communist Marxist influence. Same thing with Canada. They're trying to conduct themselves and make it look as though they're still very so-called westernized, but they've already sold out. They're already broken. It's very, very damaged. I don't want to go into that too much. I'm trying to cover a bunch of things. But anyway, it's all about the shifting tectonic plates of the human experience. It's happening live right now, and it follows a very, very exact pattern. I might have to do a separate video on that to back it up. And I'll see, because I haven't really planned that for this video. So when you go back to look at the chart, I've been talking for weeks about how it looks very incendiary to me, very, very combustible. And as we've got closer and closer to this little timestamp, around the 16th to 20th and 30th, through April and May and June, there's like a curve. And at the peak of the curve, like this, where the energy field is quite specific, you've got Mars on the cusp of Cancer going into Leo, exactly opposite Pluto on the cusp of Capricorn into Aquarius. So that creates an extreme polarity, a very fierce polarity around the 0 degrees mark. So it's wild, it's uncontrolled, it's like newborn energy. It's less like a screaming newborn baby. It doesn't know what it is or who or what it is or what its functions are. It just is what it is, raw energy. And the way I feel it is that we're seeing some of the most beautiful expressions of human behavior by people at the same time as the most despicable. Again, like these highly contradictory energies opposing themselves simultaneously. And the challenge is amplified profoundly because of the Taurus energy in the middle, which is all about reality, money, value, and values. And that's all being shredded. So let me go back to the chart for a second, see if I can explain it better this way. So if you look at something over here and the healthy expression of all this Taurus energy here, it would indicate a tremendous revolution in human population to recycle, reclaim itself as sovereign individuals, owning their own wealth through their own efforts and creating individual abundance. It's a revolutionary concept, but it's actually very, very natural, very, very pure. It's happening through commerce, and it was all lit up by the sun recently for the last 30 days during the Taurus season. We recently had the eclipse where more or less this type of angle was happening, but the moon was over here. And back at those times, what was it, a few weeks ago, I mentioned the really harsh angles over here indicating global financial chaos and implosions, which is what what is happening right now. Whether you're aware of it or not, there's very, very, very good sources and content on the internet, right? You won't get any of this stuff on mainstream, okay? I'm just letting you know. But the reality is the global financial system is just, the status quo is just suffering like a perpetual earthquake, convulsions, as the new system is emerging. The new system is essentially, we've talked about this before as well, the concept of real money, genuine money, sovereign wealth versus the existing phenomenon of fake money as organized and controlled by the global elites in the global banking system in the world of other people's money. And for decades, many decades, the populations have been induced to believe that this fake money is real, and in so doing, put all your hard-earned real money into here so that these folks can gamble it and exploit it. If they screw up, the losses are socialized and outsourced, and so there's no accountability. And if there's winnings, they keep all the winnings. So it's a very, very evil, disturbing, unfair system of basically bleeding you dry, simply exactly the same as the way they milk cows. Okay? You are the cow. You are milked through the process of debt, and they take the milk and they enjoy it in their super yachts and their mansions, and they do not operate according to rule of law. They have made themselves void of the things that we call love or empathy or compassion. They've sold out. They'd much rather have power, money, and control in this lifetime right now, with no accountability. You can understand the lure. It must be incredibly hard to resist. You know, the more you have, the more you want. When you've had a taste of so much power, money, control, all you want is more, 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 more. And that's exactly what's happening. The problem is, for the elites, is that a lot of people across the planet are starting to realize, wow, we've been scammed all this time. We want to reclaim back to we the people, 11th house energy, so that we can have sovereign wealth again and real money. So it's going to be a very slow journey for the next 20 years as that human experiment is played out across planet Earth. It will be the devolution of fake money, the United States Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury, the U.S. federal government and Congress, with all the other central banks in alignment, versus the world of autonomous, private, permissionless, true money. One of the most obvious examples of that is the Bitcoin phenomenon. Bitcoin and real money and gold are the enemy of fake money. For example, right now over here, this news just came out, Zimbabwe, okay, over here, and Venezuela, they're very, 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 very deep trouble. And Argentina over here, very, very deep trouble financially. And you could say that they were victims of the Fed, but you could also say they were victims of themselves for going along with it and playing fraud multiplied over and over and over again, resulting in their deep impoverishment of their people here, here, and here. And it's a lot of other places too. But Zimbabwe recently declared the only way to save our country, I don't know if you can see it over there. Anyway, there's Zimbabwe. It's the little purple blob right there. The only way to save this country from absolute oblivion and extreme poverty is to go back to a gold-backed commodity currency and get back to real money. Recalibrate everything and go back to gold. Zimbabwe actually has a lot of gold, interestingly enough, but the market is very fraudulent, so I don't know how that's going to work. But as soon as that declaration was made by the president over here in Zimbabwe, guess what? Whoever it was, the CIA or the DOD or DARPA or the Biden administration basically said, if you dare create a currency that is backed by real gold, your country will basically be destroyed. You are not allowed to have real money. That would be a contagion and would spread all over the world, and everyone else would start demanding, I want real money. I want gold-backed money. I want real value associated with my currency, not just a bunch of pretty-looking pieces of paper. Remember, money is a belief system. It is what you believe it to be. And people have been conned to believe it is a certain thing, but in fact it is just a massive, incredibly successful con, but the con is coming unraveled. Anyway, there is a significant momentum outside of the United States for countries to amalgamate and go back to a commodity-based currency, things like gold or oil, that have tangible value. And that, of course, is the enemy of the Fed and the Congress and the Treasury. So World War III, to my perspective, is ultimately about money versus currency. Money, like gold, versus currency, like paper notes. Paper notes are just tokens that you have to have the confidence that they actually have any value at all. And as people are starting to lose confidence across the world, hence the implosion. Anyway, gold has always been valued as money, not just currency, but actual money, because it's a store of value. Anyway, I'm not a banker, I'm not a financial consultant. Let me go over to the notes that I wanted to share. It's coming from all sorts of angles, by the way. I'm coming from all sorts. Where did I start? Okay, the first thing I found out very early this morning is that a few people, I think it was Missouri, Arkansas, where was it? There's a handful of states, about 14 states across America right now, that are protesting against Walmart. Why are they protesting against Walmart? Because some of the general public have discovered that Walmart is selling child sex dolls. Okay? There's an adult section now, apparently. And for certain adults who want to have sex with little children, they can now express their interest through a little doll. And these dolls are apparently very lifelike, and there's now a motion in the local Congress in these different states to try and get these dolls removed from circulation in Walmart. Another thing was just a couple days ago, when people were starting to talk more and more about the incendiary nature of this aspect here, I kept thinking nuclear. Well, it wasn't quite nuclear yet, but a massive mushroom cloud appeared over western Ukraine a few days ago. You can search that if you want to on the internet. And it looks just like a massive nuclear explosion. It actually happened in western Ukraine. You can't really see it very well from here, but it's actually right about here at the tip of my pen. It was right over here. And the bomb came from Russia over here. And it was Russia basically saying, like, listen, if you really want to get ugly, we can get ugly. This is what ugly is going to look like. So they sent a huge bomb way, way over to the other side of Ukraine instead of, just, smaller bombs on the eastern front. And this massive mushroom cloud came up. It was terrifying. When I first saw the reports, I thought, oh my God, it's a nuclear bomb. It wasn't a nuclear bomb. It was just a very, very big traditional bomb. I want to go to something else over here that I picked up much later because it's a connecting story. Russian nuclear bombers, Russian nuclear bombers that are mostly stationed over here right now, far away from the border. They're moving Russian nuclear bombers right up here to the Finland border. As you know, Finland has just become militarized, and they're joining NATO and the alliance over here. So the World War III is now truly upon us, and it is expanding. Traditionally, this is a massive war zone here, last World War I and World War II, all around here, and then it spreads out from there. Two very different cultures, this Russian culture and more westernized cultures over here. So that's nuclear, okay? Nuclear violence is now fully on the cards, and these massive, massive, incredibly expensive bombers are now stationed right up here. So NATO is going to have to find a counter response to that. Okay? So at the moment, basically what we've got is the United States at war through Ukraine, United States at war with Iran in the Middle East through Israel, United States at war with China through Taiwan. Okay, so the United States is in deep trouble, and it's very, very stretched out right now as it tries to maintain its hegemony across the world, like to perpetuate and maintain the American empire at the same time that it is imploding. So, talk about incendiary and nuclear. That's what I was sensing here. The reason I added nuclear is because of Uranus and Taurus over here. Highly unstable when it comes to certain, worldly elements like the actual substance of Earth. Okay, let me keep going through my little notes. I have to get this out. Very interesting, something came up as well. Again, I think it's all on this. It's more to do with this aspect here, the Saturn in Pisces for the next couple of years. Neptune closing in on the point of critical mass over here. I described it as a massive sewage spill of all the fraud that has been buried and hidden. It's coming out now. And one of the biggest examples is over the last, whatever it is, 3.5 years or so, there's been this dispute in American government and Congress about the Russia hoax, the Russia alliance with Donald Trump, such that when Donald Trump was president, the story was spread around that he was actually working for Russia to destroy America. And of course, all of this was organized by Hillary and her gang. And it turns out, what's his name, John Durham, he was very slow to do it, but they now have unequivocal proof and evidence that the whole thing was a massive, massive lie, fraud, hoax. And the whole idea was, of course, to get Trump framed and deplatformed as a president, and hopefully to get the American population to no longer trust Donald Trump. Of course, that plan backfired really badly, and Trump is now, of course, more popular than ever. The interesting thing about the John Durham revelations is that it proves, it's hard evidence, that the FBI was working with Hillary Clinton and 50 other people to create this hoax and make it look so real that it was basically presented as reality on the mainstream media. And now we're learning for a fact that it's a massive hoax. Well, the problem is with the situation is that this John Durham fellow is behaving very strangely, suggesting that it's maybe not a good idea to prosecute these FBI offenders. That sounds very weird to me. It sounds like John Durham is heavily compromised in some way, because he had all these other auras about being trustworthy. Here's another thing that I found disturbing. The IRS has cracked certain codes to get into the world of crypto, in particular the Lightning Network and the Monero Network, that pride themselves on secrecy and privacy for cryptocurrencies. Basically sort of like Bitcoin, but absolute anonymity. And the IRS is doing that. They basically paid a bunch of code crackers huge amounts of money to crack the codes to get into these blockchain systems so that the IRS can go after the tax evaders who are living through the world of cryptocurrencies and making the best of the privacy and the anonymity. In other words, sovereign wealth. Real wealth for real people. The IRS doesn't like that, as you know. And there's another really bizarre twist, again, with compromised people at the very top. As you all know, Elon Musk took on Twitter, hosed it down, took out a lot of the corruption, and he's trying to restructure the platform as a free speech platform for the world. And he got a lot of praise and thanks for doing that. Recently, though, with the Turkey elections in Turkey, Elon decided to answer to the Turkish government request to please censor the channels and Twitters of certain very important characters on Twitter in Turkey. And the request was made so that certain political people in Turkey could prevail. And Elon complied. To me, that seems very, very weird. In other words, Elon chose money and business and compromise over his original theme of free speech. Okay, that makes me very confused about Elon. The next thing about Elon is that he's just appointed this, what's her name? Lynn Yaccarino? Anyway, she's very, very high up in the World Economic Forum, and Elon just appointed her as the CEO, so he can just get back on with his life and run Tesla and do techie space things, you know. And I find this very disturbing. There's a lot of outcry from other people like myself who also believe that this is very disturbing. Now, I want to go over here for a second. I watched a fun channel the other day. It's called Crypto Viewing with Dick Allgeier, and they specialize in remote viewing. And one of their secret anonymous subjects turned out to be Elon Musk. And all the remote viewing club got essentially similar or parallel impressions in their remote viewing that indicated, yes, this is Elon Musk. But the thing that stuck with me about the stories that they were sensing psychically through their remote viewing capabilities was that Elon Musk is in deep trouble because he's extremely high up in the global pecking order, which inevitably means that he is exposed and has to participate in places like the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, and so on, Wall Street. And it's a very different world over there to just hanging around in a laboratory or a Tesla car factory, playing with ideas and having fun and freedom. Elon Musk has Mars and Aquarius, so he's very, very, let's say, almost violently interested in freedom, especially freedom of speech and the Second Amendment. It's a very, very big deal for Elon. He spent billions to prove his point. But in this remote viewing story, one of the things that they all picked up is that Elon is starting to feel very confused and depressed about what's happening in real time right now with the Twitter phenomenon, the Elon Musk phenomenon, the New World Order, globalized one world government phenomenon. And it turns out that Elon, had to meet up with the World Economic Forum and this girl, who's now the CEO. And my feeling is that the globalists, they have so much power that they basically forced Elon to accept this particular recommendation of this particular woman to be the CEO, so that Twitter can go back to being a controlled, censored environment. And in order for Elon to continue, I think what happened is he compromised himself and said, okay, if that's how it has to be, that's how it has to be. And so now Twitter is compromised. And Twitter just accepted Tucker Carlson as one of their new poster boys for free speech. What I've noticed is ever since that speech of 90 million views for Tucker Carlson, there has been no more content from Tucker. Not that I can find. So something very, very weird is going on. Elon truly, truly wants free speech. He's very concerned about we the people. But I think he's being heavily, heavily squeezed by the elites. Imagine there's people who are even more elite than Elon. And so now we have this creepy lady. And I remember reading some of the notes from the meeting where Elon was talking with this lady inside the World Economic Forum in a public setting, where she was saying things like, well, Elon, you have to understand, these advertisers, if you want all that money from advertising, then you've got to kind of, give the advertisers a little bit of say in what happens and how it happens, and allow them to influence you and Twitter and your audience. And then Elon said something like, you know what, that word influence sounds more like censor. Influence, censorship. Influence, censorship. That's what Elon detected. And I think he was right to detect that. And I think he was absolutely true. But I think she won in the end because she is an appointee from the elites. To me, that's very, very disturbing. Anyway, I wanted to share that one. Another one that came up today, you know how we have, Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, and the federal government, the Joe Biden administration. They're at this crisis point right now with the debt ceiling story and all of that. And how are they going to balance the economy? Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. If we raise interest rates too big, too high, we're going to crush the economy because it'll be too expensive to borrow money because our whole economy is built on debt. Credit cards, car payments, mortgages, college loans, business loans, all of that, real estate development, business development. So if you raised interest rates even 1/4%, 0.5%, it has huge influence on the American economy. Of course they know that. And so the other answer is, well, what are we going to do? We're kind of stuck at the moment. Let's print more money. And then someone else says, well, wait a minute, if you print more money, we're just going to create the bigger problem down the road. Oh, well, we better lower interest rates. And then they say, well, wait a minute, you can't lower interest rates because that'll create more incentive for fake money in borrowing that can't be sustained. Oh, so what are we going to do? Well, actually, in reality, there's no solution because it's the end of the road for the American dollar, effectively. And everyone else in the world is realizing that, especially people outside of America. A lot of Americans are completely oblivious because we live inside this beautiful bubble that owns the world reserve currency. So anyway, today the Fed decided, okay, well, we got to do something to control the situation, so they jacked up interest rates. Okay, there you go. So that makes it harder and harder and harder for the general public, who are utterly dependent on debt. By the way, going back to the Trump hoax, the Russia hoax, that was proven to be a hoax, and for the whole of the Trump presidency all those years ago, Trump was being attacked permanently by the mainstream media for being a Russian spy. It's absolutely ludicrous. Anyway, it's proven now that it was all a hoax, and this fellow, John Durham, with this thing called the Durham Report, okay, there it is, my notes, real live notes, the Durham Report, it's actually not over. Even though John Durham said, we probably shouldn't prosecute these FBI criminals, it's probably not a good idea. So that makes you feel like John Durham is compromised, even though he's apparently, helping Trump and helping the Republicans, helping conservatives, helping constitutionalists and people who want to restore America to its beauty. So apparently, Durham is actually going back to Congress, and he's going to be testifying in front of Congress, the House Senate Committee, on May 25th. Okay? So that's also during this episode here of extreme combustibility. Now that combustibility doesn't just apply to the global financial system or the American financial system. It applies to everything on Earth. Let's call this real money, fake money. So the world of real money is under intense pressure right now from this massive T-square. This is a hyper-stressful aspect here and here, amplified by this aspect here. And the only way to heal the pain and the damage is to restore authenticity to money. And it's also to restore authenticity to truth, authenticity to the United States Constitution, and to obliterate and take down the deep state and hold all those criminals accountable. I went on to Truth Social. Hold on. I went on to Truth Social the other day, and I found a list. It was about 18 or 20 names of all the top offenders on Donald Trump's execution list when he takes office again in 25, excuse me. And he's got a full list of about 150 people because he's a lot more wise now. When he first got into office, he was extremely naive. Despite his wealth and experience and whatever, he was extremely naive about how truly evil the deep state has become. The deep state is essentially like a massive, cancerous tumor that has spread itself all over the United States, more or less like a Marxist communist regime that is almost in full bloom. So it's like being a person who has been diagnosed with cancer, and then they diagnosed, oh my God, it's metastatic cancer. That means it's everywhere in your body. And then they look closer, oh my God, it's not only metastatic cancer, you're actually very close to death. Uh-oh. So that's what's happening with the United States right now. Let me go back to my notes again. Seriously, I'm trying to do this as fast as I can so you can get on with your day. There's a lot more stuff. Before I forget them, some of the things I just found today, I went through them, and I just don't have enough time to do the depths of study that I would like to do. But the things that resonated with me was the drone strike captured on camera where a Ukrainian drone landed in one of the trenches where there was a bunch of other dead Russian soldiers lying around. And then this drone landed in the trench pretty close to this Russian soldier. And the drone went off, but the Russian soldier was not killed. And those trenches are very, very close to the front lines of the Ukraine border war zone there and the Russian zone here. And so if that's the Russians, that's the Ukrainians, and this is a trench in the Russian side, all those dead soldiers are in there. And then this Russian soldier looks at the drone that's already exploded, and he still has his life, and he still has his rifle. And then you can see he's sort of like wandering around in a daze. And he looks at his other dead soldier buddies, and he decides, okay, I can't take it. I don't want to be a war prisoner to Russia, and I'm living in shame. And I'm almost dead anyway. So you can see him. He takes his rifle, sticks it the muzzle up into his throat, and he shoots himself, kills himself. And it's on camera. It's very sad. It's very disturbing. There's a tremendous loss of life on Russia's side and Ukrainian side. And the war is expanding. Bigger guns, bigger bullets, more guns, more bullets, and nukes. Okay? See what I mean here? Oh, another link that I got this morning was from Love Triber or Path Traveler. It was one of those Twitter Telegram things about the southern border. It was very disturbing to see what's actually happening. You don't see it on mainstream. You can actually see it close up, what's happening on the border. It's very, very tragic. Governor Greg Abbott is now sending busloads of illegal immigrants over to Kamala Harris's house up in Washington. I think that's quite funny. They've been doing that already, and Abbott is sending all those folks from Texas over here. Abbott is over here, all the Texas border here. The forces are moving across the border, and anybody that does get through, they're taking them, rounding them all up, sending them on buses over to here, 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 over to these sanctuary cities, to all the people who said we want open borders and freedom to immigration. So now they're getting it, and now they're complaining. The mayor of New York is saying we can't handle it. Be careful what you wish for. There was something else I wanted to say about the border and Abbott, but I can't remember what it is. I'm sorry. There was something that happened in Great Britain the other day. One of those financial reports coming out of the financial papers in New England. The Bank of England boss basically said to the British population, I'm sorry, everybody, but it's just very simple. You're just going to have to get used to being poor. That's pretty rude. So, another thing, of course, you've probably noticed it, is that all over the United States there's a tremendous amount of sabotage, mostly funded by George Soros and his anti-America team of secret underground saboteurs, blowing up trains, blowing up this, blowing up that, oil refineries, power plants, transformers, anything that they possibly can to destroy the infrastructure of America, so the country collapses faster and faster and creates a crisis. Somebody said that George Soros is dead. I don't think he is, but I wish he was. So anyway, the Federal Reserve Bank, the federal government, and the Federal Treasury and Congress are all working very closely together to effectively destroy this beautiful thing that we have and turn it into this thing, and this thing, and this thing, this thing, and this thing. It's very, very tragic. By the way, a couple of notes on China. If you're not watching what I'm watching, you need to watch out. China itself is having a massive economic implosion, and it's only just beginning. Because if you think our economy is screwed and it's all based on debt and fraud, just multiply that by an extreme and add another 1.2 billion people, and then that amplifies their problem over here even more. How can I end on a sweet note? There must be some kind of sweet note. What would that sweet note be? Let me go over here for a minute. Sweet notes would be... Oh! I got something. What I've noticed is that there are certain human people who do have compassion and empathy. And the way I see it most purely expressed is in the world of animal sanctuaries, animal rescue. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you rescue a crippled baby cow that has no chance in life in normal circumstances? Why would you rescue a baby squirrel that was abandoned by its mother or lost? Why would you go around interfering in nature and looking for turtles and pulling off all the barnacles and the crabs and the algae and the plastic and the ropes and the netting to save one little turtle? Some people are dedicating their whole lives and all their resources to saving turtles and eagles and wallabies and kangaroos and what are those little koala bears, fish, and so on. There's so much other stuff going on out there. I mean, the whole stuff going on with Bill Gates and all that. I don't know what other word for it is. It's evil stuff going on there. What was that other thing recently that connected? I wish I'd taken notes, but it was another connection to the Jeff. Oh yeah, I think I told you about that one. Larry Page, one of the original founders of Google, many years ago, 25 years ago, whenever that was. And it's been discovered that he has very intimate ties with Jeffrey Epstein's world and all the other elites who used to, let's say, do some very suspicious, creepy stuff on Epstein Island, and also a lot of dirty money and all that kind of stuff. But over here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, they've put out an arrest warrant to try and find Larry Page, because he's hiding over here and they can't find him. But Congress wants him to appear in front of the House Senate Committee, special committee, to answer a few questions regarding his associations with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates and all that crowd. Can you imagine? It must be so weird being one of the elites. Can you imagine it like Elon Musk bumps into Larry and goes, "Hey Larry, how are you doing? Did you lose another couple billion today?" "Yeah, it was rough." "Oh, well, let's go get coffee. Let's hang out." "Are you being pressured? Are you being squeezed?" "Oh, yeah, it's weird. Like, hey, I don't want to get into the little kiddie stuff. That's very, very sad, disturbing, and creepy. That's a whole. There's plenty of other material. I get Past Traveler and Love Tribers send me all sorts of stuff that's much creepier than I can really talk about here. But the stories are true. That's the way I see it. There are people, the reason I know that they're true is because when I was a young lad, I used to live over here for a while, and I just happened to be exposed to the world of the elites of this place over here, the United Kingdom. And I found it very, very disturbing because they had lots of beliefs and values and behaviors and attitudes that to me were very frightening, very sick. And much of it revolved around sex abuse, child abuse, and so on. Mostly like for sport and for fun and for personal gratification. And it's condoned and it is prevalent throughout the tippy-top pyramid of elites. So I'm now realizing here as an adult many years later that that little thing that I witnessed is still alive and well today. It's on a global scale, sex trafficking, child trafficking, which is a big part of the Biden southern border agenda, because they have very thirsty appetites for little kids. They can't help themselves. It's like an addiction. I think it's like an addiction. Once they get a taste for these creepy behaviors and whatever it is that turns them on, like power, money, and control, and you really get your rocks off by doing despicable things to little children. They can't help themselves. They've already emptied their soul. They've already decided to void themselves of compassion, empathy, and love, because they would much rather have playtime with little kids and have more power, more control, and more money. It's just a choice. They chose that. I like simple things. I like hanging out with little Bubba the cat. I like hanging out with my friends. I like cooking food. I like balancing my budget. I like being on my bicycle. I like chatting on Zoom and YouTube with my friends and family across the world. I love hanging out with you guys. I like doing my Sunday night readings, and I like helping people, especially through my tarot readings and astrology readings. And that's what makes me feel good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Thank you very much